So, in our Esther series, what we're going to discover today is that sometimes we're just going to have to trust the faithfulness of God right where we're at. Even if we're standing and serving in the midst of people that are prideful or arrogant, or maybe even plotting to kill. In Esther 3 and 4, this is what we're told. Now the king had a man brought in, and his name was Haman. And he required that everyone had to bow to Haman. But there was one that absolutely refused and would not bow, and it was Mordecai. Well, some attendants were with Mordecai at the city gates, and when Haman would come by, they would notice that he wouldn't bow. And they asked him one day, Mordecai, why is it that when Haman comes by, you don't bow? And every day when Haman would go by, they would see that Mordecai would not bow. And they would ask him over and over. Finally, Mordecai told them, I do not bow to Haman because I'm a Jew. Well, the two attendants immediately went to Haman. They wanted to see what he thought about it. And they told him the reason Mordecai doesn't bow is because he's a Jew. This made Haman so angry. He was so mad that just to kill even just Mordecai wasn't enough. He wanted to kill all Jews. So he made a plot and a plan. And he went to the king. And when he arrived, he said, in your kingdom, there are some people, they don't obey all your rules, and they don't necessarily do what you ask. I think it might be a good idea if we just got rid of them. I'm willing to give you 375 tons of silver. And the king said, keep your money, do what you want with the people. And he gave Haman his ring. Haman then went to the king's attendants, and he had them write out an edict that was written in the languages of all the people in the territories, telling them that on a certain day that they were to kill all of the Jews. And then they stamped it with the king's ring, and they sent it out. Well, when Mordecai heard about this, he was so grieved by it. He began to rip his clothes, and he put on sackcloth, which was the clothing of mourning. And he went around the city just crying and grieving over what he had learned. And the people joined him, and many of them also put on sackcloths, grieving clothes, and they went about crying. Well, some of the maids had heard what Mordecai was doing, and they had gone in to Esther to tell her about Mordecai. So Esther got some clothes together, and she sent them out to Mordecai, but he refused to put them on, and the maids told her. And so she wanted to find out what is going on. So she sent them to go find out what was going on with Mordecai. And she found out that he wanted her to go talk to the king. And she sent a message back, and she said, I can't go to the king. You know the rules that unless he invites you to come to him, you can be killed. The only way that he would allow this to happen is if a person shows up and he points the scepter at them and then allows them to come. The king hasn't even asked to see me in over 30 days. Well, when Mordecai got this message from Esther, he sent a message back to her, and he said, do not think that you are safe just because you are in the palace. If you don't do something, or say something. Another way will be made for our people, and they will be saved by someone else. Who knows? Maybe the very reason that you are queen is for such a time as this. Well, when Esther received the message, she sent back to Mordecai, okay, fine. Get all of the people of Susa together and tell them to fast for 3 days. I and my maids, we will also fast for 3 days. And after the 3 days, I will go in to the king. And if I die, I die. Well, they took the message to Mordecai, and he did exactly as she asked. May God honor the telling of his word. So as you listened today, where did you see faithfulness? How was Mordecai faithful? How was Esther faithful? And what was the struggle? Why was it so hard for the Jewish people, for Mordecai and Esther? And what did Mordecai mean? That maybe you were placed here for such a time as this. And when Mordecai and Esther fasted and asked the people of Susa to fast, what were they doing during that time? And whose faithfulness were they seeking? It's important to be in the Word, to be with Jesus, so we can be transformed. Shalom, y'all.